Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, but most importantly, if you would like to join the debate, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the discussion and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. In a moment, I'm going to transition across to my photograph so I can share the show on Facebook, Skype, and Twitter, and I would encourage anybody who is in the live audience to please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you are new to the channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Oh, that didn't take long. Got our first couple of guests in. So I'm going to say hello. Let's just raise the mic on you guys. Got Ranty and Sleeping Warrior. I think Sleeping Warrior is from first. Can I get a hello from you, Sleeping Warrior?
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning to you too. Ranty's on mute, so presumably he's nipped away for a second. Cool. How's things?
Busy. A lot. Yesterday's show, brilliant. Yesterday's show, we didn't really achieve much other than we're still trying to argue over the dots. And I'm going to go out all crazy and say that we spent hours yesterday trying to pinpoint more of these dots. And what we found was that basically, but for one or two at the beginning of the picture, all of them should be behind the curve. All of them. Not some of them or most of them. Bar the high ones that are right near that Morgold lighthouse, all of them are gone. So it doesn't really matter whether it's Douglas or Balacanal or whatever town they want. None of them lights down that bottom end of the picture should be visible because they should all be behind. They all should be behind a huge wall of water stopping us from seeing it. That hump. So today, unless people can come with evidence to the contrary, and by that I mean Paul, if you've got evidence to the contrary, let's talk about the curvature. Let's talk about what buildings should be seen behind the curve, because I'm going to assert that none of them should be seen. You might get the odd one or two at the beginning of the picture near Morgold Lighthouse, but all of the other ones that are down by, whether it's Balacanal or whether it's whatever that Baldrine or whether it's Douglas, none of them should be seen. They're all gone. So, and we spent hours on it. We were trying to find any dots that would support the idea of living on a little bloody ball. And obviously, we've come across none. Every single one of them is gone. So it doesn't really matter what you're picking out. It doesn't matter how far, because it goes way beyond the curve calculator. It goes beyond that ambiguous bit where it becomes a little bit 50-50, where it's not clear. So I'm going to make the claim again. All of the lights that are down by that area that we're arguing over, whether it's Baldrine, Balacanal or Douglas, all of them lights should be behind the curve. All the lights, Paul. Rumpus. So unless you can come back with some evidence to support non-standard refraction and bringing up this mirage so into a hologram so that people can believe what their eyes see them into not believing what their eyes see them, in the absence of evidence to support non-standard refraction rubbish, then where's the curve? And I'm going to keep asking that question today, because that's where I'm at. We know what all the buildings are. We know what all the lights are. We've identified them. And if we don't agree on them, it doesn't really make any difference now because they're all behind the curve. So that's where I'm at. So it's been busy. Ranty, where are you at?
I'm here. So I was just making a brew.
Yeah, I forgot mine as well. Where are you at with the dots, Ranty? What have you been working on in the last 24 hours?
I haven't really been working on this anymore. I think we've pretty much worn it out, to be fair. We know what we're looking at. We know we're looking at Douglas, and
I agree. We're looking at Douglas. I think there's a bit of an overlap between Douglas and Baldrine. I don't think there's any overlap with Bala-Canal. I don't think it's big enough to see. It's a small town on basically 2 roads that run parallel with the coast. And all the houses down there are essentially private dwellings. They're not city centres. They're not double-storey, triple-storey, quadruple-storey, multi-storey buildings. They're all small houses. Go and look down there. Go on Street View. Go and look. You'll see. Bala-Canal is not a particularly prominent town. Yeah, you might see the odd light here and there. But if you look at what we're looking at in the bottom corner, you can clearly see that some of those lights are big. That's consistent with city centre, multi-storey buildings, multi-storey car parks. And if you actually go onto Google Earth and look at the town centre of Douglas or the city centre of Douglas, you'll see that it's all white. Everything there seems to be white. It seems to be a very white city.
You got that drone footage?
Buildings are white.
Got that drone footage by any chance?
Yeah.
I mean, I think this would definitely fall under fair use. We are comparing and contrasting this drone footage with your photograph to see if it's real in real world.
I agree. Let's see if I can get it up quick. Yesterday we were looking at.
I wasn't working on it yesterday. Actually, it was, wasn't I? I forgot about
the drone. We did go through we did go through some drone footage. Right. Let me just fire up my screen. Oops. Oh, did I have my screen on then? My screen should be on now, Nath, if you want to present me.
It's just black at the minute, I think. Oh no, there we go.
So this is a guy's video. This is the ferry that's coming out of the port. The ferry itself appears to be huge relative to all the other buildings. But almost all of these buildings, with the exception of this, presumably it's a bank, but all the buildings are white. There's the odd building that's not. So even these ones that are on this mountain here, on this peninsula of land, they're all white. All of them. So it lends weight to the suggestion that we are looking indeed at Douglas, because fundamentally, these are all white buildings. I've shown that the line of sight gives it a triangular shape to it, and that there's a ravine in the foreground, and it looks like the ravine is in the foreground because I've put it there with a yellow line. Tuft of trees. 3 lights on the corner, which would be the 3 lights that were on the. I think they're these 3 lights here. I agree, and I accept that they're not in a dead straight line. But Soundly showed that light bends up as well as down. It's quite possible with a little tiny bit of refraction on that little line of sight there, applying Fermat's principle of the bending and the trajectory of light.
No, that's not
so
true.
That can be bent down slightly. That's
not true. I've seen that modelled. Chris, show me those lights modelled. And
yeah,
they appear to be in a straight line when modelled by pure virtue of perspective.
But for me, we have to look at the evidence and we have to look at it objectively and say, do these things line up and do they match up objectively, right? Regardless of the shape of the Earth, because all these are gone anyway. If we live on a little ball, all these are gone, right? You can't see them. But this is the evidence. We're presented with evidence, and we've got to look at it and say, well, does it match what we see? Now, I agree that these 3 things don't line up absolutely perfectly, but I also realize that a little bit of Fermat's principle and the trajectory of light would account for it. So I could make the excuse and not feel as though I'm doing anything wrong by applying a little bit of Fermat's principle to this light here, because it doesn't line up absolutely perfectly. It looks a little bit taller, a little bit, but nonetheless, that's
just perspective, Anthony.
Oh yeah, I mean, it probably is just perspective, but I accept that if there's one little tiny light that's not in the right place, but everything else seems to match. That makes sense to me.
Well, you've got Douglas. I sent you the PNG yesterday called Douglas. If you want to find that one and display that, because that basically shows Douglas and the composite.
Now, I'll find this. Yeah, I'll look at this bit. Look, this part of this clip now shows
this video.
Virtually every building.
Hold on. Just want to say hello to Arif. How you doing, Arif? Can you hear us? Hello, Arif. AFK. Right, off you go. Sorry to interrupt.
As you can see, that all of these buildings almost are all white. You can see that they are all multi-story buildings. They are all big. They are what you'd expect to see in a city centre. That, by any interpretation, would match the size that you would expect to see when these are 40 plus miles away. So I still think that these are Douglas. I still think that the land that's in front here is the corner of the land that I wanted in the previous hangout, because it matches. But I just want to go back to the one point that I made yesterday, which is fun for me. This is a fundamental, whether it's a ball killer or not, isn't what the word I'm looking for. What it is for me is another consistent proof that makes me think that we are looking at something very particular, and it's identifiable. Now, Paul wants this area to be Baldrine. I have no problem saying whether it's Baldrine or whether it can't be Laxey, because Laxey is behind a ravine. So I'll never agree to that, because Laxey is not visible. But I'm not against the idea that, let me go back to the composite, that these three lights here equally can match, three lights that we see here. We've got 1, 2, 3 lights. I don't think they are, because I think they're way too small. But I'm not against the idea, because there are elements to this that I do tend to agree with. I don't agree with it as much. It's not as strong in my opinion. But I can rule out Laxey being part of the evidence, because as you can see, it's blocked by this. And you're only going to potentially see the corner of this Bala Canal if you can see it at all. Because if you run down the street here, you can go on Street View. These are just normal houses. And a lot of them are blocked by these trees. These trees are tall, well-established trees. So they're going to block the line of sight. To basically block out a lot of these houses. It's going to make it even smaller. I'm not saying it's not Bala Canal. I'm saying it could be. But I also realise that there's a line of sight between Bala Canal and Douglas, because if I put myself back on this line of sight here, Douglas is over here and Bala Canal is here. But when I go out and change the parallax, there is houses between this peninsula of land here, this head, that could well be interpreted to be like this could be one of the three lights. I mean, we could be looking at one of the lights here, and it could be this. I'm not saying it is, but it could be. That one there could be the middle one. And then that one, or these houses here could be the other one. I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying that they could be. We've got them identified, and we understand what we think that they are. But what I'm saying is there's an overlap. So even if you argue that Baldrine, for example, is what we're seeing when we're looking at this part here, there's an overlap, because these are basically in a straight line. Now, they're not on this part, on the evidence here, but if you're going to claim that Baldrine, this is Bala Canal, you've got, it's hard to show it, but when you go back to St. Bees, these are all in the same area. All this corner here, all are on the same line of sight, and you can't distinguish very easily at all. But in any event, it doesn't make much difference, because when you apply curvature to them, all of them are missing. So let's not spend too much time identifying the lights, because fundamentally it doesn't make any difference if they're all missing behind the curve. I'd rather we spend more time applying the curve calculator, because the curve is the thing that we're supposed to be arguing over. It becomes moot if all of these are meant to be behind the curve. It doesn't really matter whether you say it's this one, no, it's not, it's that one. It doesn't make any difference. If they're all behind the curve, they're all behind the curve. So I'm looking forward to when we start putting the curve things back into this and saying, hey, all of these should be missing. I'm looking forward to the reasons for why we're not, because there is no evidence to support non-standard refraction. It's minimal. It's negligible. You can see a little tiny bit along the horizon, and that's the limits of it. But to argue the minute the word non-standard refraction, or even refraction generally, the minute that comes out the word, that word comes out of the word book, it becomes holographic. And if you think that we're looking at a hologram, be my guest. If you think that we're looking at what we see because it's there, and I echo Nathan's words, if it's there, we see it, it's there. We're not looking at a hologram. Otherwise, you wouldn't get people that were able to find missiles and stuff aiming at a hologram, because they would never hit. The hologram would be in completely the wrong place. We wouldn't have wars. We wouldn't have people that were firing bullets on long distance. There wouldn't be any wars if there was this apparent curvature based on this apparent radius with
I can reject out of hand any
observation
things they make, because nothing, and Rumpus keeps reiterating this, the line we draw in Google is not a line of sight, and he's correct. What it is a curve around the Earth curve that's obscuring our view. That's what it actually is. The problem being that there isn't any Earth curve obscuring our view. We do have line of sight with these things. And in order for him to triangulate with them, he has to accept that he's triangulating a hologram that's projected up from behind a wall of Earth curve. We don't have line of sight with it. We can't shoot that lighthouse. Can't directly snipe it. We don't have line of sight with it. According to the Globers, there is a massive wall of Earth curve blocking our view, so we couldn't shoot someone in that lighthouse, according to Globers. I completely disagree. We can see it. It is there. It is not a hologram, and we do have line of sight with it. If you could see someone and you had a long enough, a good enough gun, you could shoot them because you can see them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you'd have to judge into account winds and all that kind of malarkey. But yeah, the line of sight is because we see it. It's not because we're looking at a hologram or a projection. Oh, and it's notable as well that I need to make you aware, Nathan, that the buzzword at the moment with the ballers is what's the word? Boycott. Apparently, they're all boycotting you, right? And I'm going to call them on this. They're boycotting you, right? Because it's very, very.
Has he been sniped out already?
Red.
You still there, Auntie? Clearly not. Oh, this looks like this show will continue on Skype.
I didn't realize I'd been kicked.
I didn't realise either. I was playing with my kid. Are
Well,
you back now?
So I'm back. We're back on now.
So Arav was clearly not Arav. Should have just kicked him immediately. If I don't get a response from now on, regardless of what the icon says, I'm just going to kick people.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
No skin off our teeth. Can you add?
I was just saying while I was kicked and nobody heard it, obviously because I got kicked. But it's the buzzword now for the ballers is that apparently, Nathan, they're all apparently they are all boycotting you.
Good.
Now I find that extremely convenient when it comes to the point that they're actually getting their heads kicked in with this one.
No problem.
We won't be dropping it. We'll be
just
discussing it because it is a flat earth proof.
Let's just, as no one's here to challenge us, because clearly they can't challenge us on this point. Every single item up and down the coast is obscured by Earth curve in the heliocentric model. However, we see it. End of story. We see it because it's there. We see it because we have line of sight. We have line of sight because the Earth is flat. This is proof, and they have nothing. They've tried every avenue. They've tried, and they have failed. That's why they are now boycotting. If they claim they are boycotting the show, it's lies. They've just failed miserably. We have proven the Earth is flat. It is obvious and observable, and demonstrated in Anthony Riley's photograph from St. Bees.
So let everybody boycott Nathan Oakley. Let everybody boycott Isle of Man.
Got Jamie.
That's fine.
I know Jamie's disappeared already. Fair enough, Jamie. But yeah, if no one wants to challenge that, no problem.
No. No. They don't. They do want to challenge it, Nathan, but they're all boycotting it.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's funny that you boycott something just at the same point when you're getting your head stoved in.
Yeah, it's very telling.
Oh, Paul Voigt says in chat, take your proof to the papers. Nathan, have I sent you the email when I contacted the papers? Did I show you that?
It will also be peer reviewed eventually for people who are claiming that it won't be.
Did I show you the email that I sent to the papers?
Yeah. I'm up to date with that side of things. But yeah,
so
people say, why don't you present this to Nature magazine and get it peer reviewed? Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, what do you think we did? We're just not going to declare that's the case before anything's happened.
Hey, ALK, I believe you went back to St. Bees and you did some work up there. I'd be really interested to see how much of the island you caught, mate. When's the video coming up? Because I'm going to make a claim, ALK. I'm going to claim that, yes, you went to St. Bees. and you stood wherever it was that you stood, and you got the observer height and whatever, fine. I want to see what did you capture on your camera, and I'm going to make a prediction because I saw the little snippet yesterday that Jeremy was referencing. Now, by the way, for the record, Jeremy now accepts that I was where I say I was, but I want to see, Al. I want to see what stuff you actually captured, and I'm going to claim that you got Isle of Man in the front of you the way I did, and I'm going to claim, in addition, you failed to get the land that's floaty, that floaty land to the right-hand side that you're all laughing at me at. I'm going to claim that you didn't get it. Because if you get Isle of Man in front of you, but you don't get the land that's to the right, then the land to the right cannot be Isle of Man. Do you understand that? It means that the opacity of the atmosphere, the moisture, the grogginess, the dirty air, whatever you want to call it, and laugh at me about, it was stopping you from seeing any further than the Isle of Man. So if it was the case that we were seeing the Isle of Man, I'm going to call you on it, present your evidence, and let's see what you got. Did you get the Isle of the floaty land to the right or not? Because I've seen the snippet that showed that you got it in the foreground, the main mountainous bit. Nobody challenges that bit. The contentious bit is, did you get the stuff to the right? So come on, Al. Where's the video? Come onto the board. Come onto the panel. Let's present the evidence and let's see what you did get. I'm calling you on it. Bring the evidence. Let's see. Did you get that floaty island or not? And the best thing is, I know the answer. Why? Because the hardest part for me to film was that floaty land on the right. It was very far away. The other stuff in front of you was dead easy. So unless you didn't use a P900 or there was some other reason for why you didn't get it, I'm expecting you to reproduce that observation and get the Isle of Man to the right if it was the Isle of Man. However, if you get the Isle of Man in front of you and there's no floaty land to the right, that means it's not the Isle of Man. So just come on, Al. Put your money where your mouth is. Let's see what evidence you got.
When you say the floaty land to the right, what you're specifically referring to is about a 270-foot bank that sits after the lowlands of the Isle of Man. So the Isle of Man, in terms of the mountainous bit that peaks out, that we're all absolutely almost in complete agreement on. Beyond that, there is a stretch of what looks like water. Well, that's actually the lowlands. We do know there are lowlands of the Isle of Man in there. But beyond that, depending on how you scale the photo, we have to have the closest point of the Isle of Man on the right. That little jutty out bit is in the scaled model that the globe has currently vehemently adhered to. That is a 270, I think, foot bank. It's a very high piece of land on the end of the Isle of Man. And that would be the closest thing to you and the easiest thing to see, if it is the Isle of Man.
All right, so I'll just put in text that he didn't hear what I said because apparently his headphones disconnected. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I won't call you a liar. Would it be the same courtesy in reply? I don't think so. However, I understand that Al and Miles went to St. Bees to try and do some work, right? And that's brill. I encourage that because now I can call you on it. I can call you to the table to present your evidence because it appears to me that I could see that you got the main part of the Isle of Man. Great. That's not contentious. What I'm calling you on is to produce the rest of the evidence of the floaty land to the right that you will have panned across to see. So if you went to St. Bees and repeated the observation, you will have panned to the right. If you panned to the right and did not see that land that I captured, guess what? It means it's not the Isle of Man. If you pan to the right and did capture that land, maybe it is Isle of Man and there was just something weird going on at that time that made me feel as though it was going a lot further than what it actually was. But we can see clearly from the snippet that I've seen that you did get the Isle of Man in front of you. Well done. Congratulations. Lovely. I want to see the land to the right. I'm not bothered about anything to the left. I don't care whether that's Balakanal or whatever. I want to see the land to the right. Did you capture that land to the right or not? Because if you didn't, and it's the closest land to us, it doesn't make sense logically. Logic and reason tells you that the closest point will be the point that's easiest to capture. So I want Al to produce proof that he caught that floaty land. If Al doesn't produce that floaty land, it means it's in the background, far away, and it cannot be Isle of Man. So come on, Al. Yeah, give us a short answer. Did you capture the floaty Did you capture the floaty land to the far right or not? Yeah, give us a short answer. And then whatever your answer is, produce the proof and prove it. And I know what the answer will be. Before you put the answer, I'll tell you. You didn't get it.
Well, we don't know that, but anyway.
No, I'm calling it. I'm calling it because I know what I did that day, and it was the hardest part for me to film.
Caught, so we'll reserve judgment, or at least I will. How you doing, Jazzaconda? Can you hear us? You're on mute at the moment. Hopefully I can get you an intro if you're not AFK. Can you hear us, Jazaconda?
Yeah, g'day, mate. How are you?
Nice.
Nathan.
I'll turn you up, my friend. You're a little bit quiet. You've got on a couple of times, but you always got sniped, and you never really got to say anything, Jazaconda.
Yeah, no, it's a bit of a shame, but it's I just find the whole subject very interesting, but from a different standpoint, I have to say.
What's your standpoint? Is it the way to debate, the art of debate?
No, I debating's not really got anything to do with it.
What's your standpoint?
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
You said that you find it really interesting from a different standpoint. What's your standpoint that you find it interesting from?
Well, I live in the South Island of New Zealand, about 45 degrees south, and I mean, it's evident just from observations from my standpoint that the going from summer to winter solstice, we have daylight savings and all that, which changes by an hour a year, but in the excuse me, in the middle of on the 22nd of December, the sun goes down at 10:30, 30 hours in the middle of summer, not accounting for daylight savings, and goes down. It's dark here in the middle of winter, 22nd of June, winter solstice at 5:30, 17:30.
I think what's most interesting is you're at the point that where I live, if you go all the way around the Earth on the ball model and you get to your opposing position on the opposite side of the Earth, it does have a posh name. I can't remember it. But
Greenwich,
you're at the point.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Antipodal.
Antipodal. That's right. If you're anywhere near Wellington, you're right near the point where that is my antipodal. I would expect you to get the same weather that I get, but in back to front, because the tilt of the Earth would just negate it backwards. It would say you would get summer and I would get winter, and vice versa. From my understanding, it appears that when you get
no light, daytime and nighttime would be correct, but weather has nothing to do with it.
Sorry, I meant daylight. I misspoke. Forgive me. I meant the way that the light works.
Okay.
Forget weather. I didn't mean weather. I meant the way that the light works. Now, from what I understand from people that live over in your neck of the woods, when the sun goes down, we get something called a twilight hour and a blue hour. A twilight hour is the immediate aftermath of the sunset. Now, that is not necessarily an hour, but it's not far off an hour in summer. But then we have a blue hour, which is like the part where it's no longer daylight, it's becoming night, but it's lingering. The light is lingering. Now, from what I understand, when the sun sets over there for you, half an hour later, it's pitch black. You don't have the same dispersants.
That may be where it disrepresents from my side to your side, because over here in terms of aviation, we have a thing called civil twilight, where you have to be on the ground before civil twilight, and that's all calculated out in charts for every day of every month of every year. I don't know how they do that, but they do. And it goes down by about 3.5 minutes a day, I think, something like that. But civil twilight, like what I was saying before about the day and the night between winter and summer, like at the moment, our what we call civil twilight, by the time the sun is like 5 degrees on the horizon and then below the horizon, twilight from going complete sunshine to complete darkness takes 2 hours plus at 45 degrees south.
So that's not consistent with what I understand then, because I was of the opinion, I believed based on other people's witness evidence, particularly down to the cameraman, that once the sun sets, it don't take long for it to go pitch black, whereas we get the light lingering for hours.
I think he's been booted, so as opposed to boycotting the show, they want to actually prevent the show from happening. Which is fine, you know. We can continue to talk amongst ourselves if they literally want no one to talk to us because they can't fight the fact that the Earth is flat, obviously and observably, and they don't want anyone to have a conversation with us. Again, very telling. But that's fine. You know, that's how this show's going to be today. I've got no problem with that.
And you know what? If it was us, if it was the other way around, it would be represented to the audience as running away like worms, rats, or scaramongers. Well, it's exactly that. All the houses that we're arguing over, whether it's Balacanal or whatever, are behind the curve. Nobody is going to come and stand up and be counted because they can't get around it. They know we're not going to accept non-standard refraction because A, it's not a mirage. B, well, there's no evidence to support it being non-standard refraction. And C, it's far more convenient for them to claim boycott. Well, claim the boycott. I think it's quite obvious what's really happening.
Yeah,
Al-K's gone up there.
What's happened is
they've
gone to the nth degree to try and debunk you to the point where they've literally gone back to your observation point. They've wanted to run tape measures down sides of cliffs. They've wanted to go to all sorts of different reference points to check that they are, in fact, wrong, or we are, in fact, wrong in our assertion that it's all supposed to be hidden behind Earth curve. And it is all supposed to be hidden behind Earth curve, and none of it is. The only accountable, sensible explanation is that the Earth is flat. That is the only logical explanation. To accept that we are having refraction bend these images up behind the curve and they are using them to triangulate. They're triangulating with holograms. That's what they're doing. They're triangulating these positions with holograms because they think that they cannot see any of it. They assume there is a wall blocking their way and things are being projected up above that line that we cannot see past because it's a physical barrier blocking our view. In reality, there's no physical barrier. There's no Earth curve. There's no wall of water. There's no wall of Earth. We just see this stuff. None of it's a hologram. It's all there. We see it because the Earth is flat.
Oh, and by the way, whatever day they went up on the weekend, be it Saturday or Sunday, we're now on Tuesday. So if it was really the case that I in some way lied about my height, which I'm only, like I say, I'll reassert my position. I only put in the values that Google told me, okay? If I did lie about any part of it, where's the video showing me that the real height is 10,500 feet? Because I put in 35 because it's what it was. I'll give you 52 because it's the highest I can possibly be. Where's the video showing the real height? Because if the Ordnance Survey map is what we're using, but they've gone up and measured it and it's somewhere around about what they said, what it says on Google Earth, guess what we're going with? Google Earth. So where's the video proving the height that I was at? I don't accept that you went up there and didn't do some kind of tape measure test. Even if it's a bit, Jack the Lad. I don't really care. Do you agree? Can you prove otherwise that I was at the heights that Google Earth gives us? And if you can, produce the evidence.
Yeah. Well, when they're getting past an almost quarter of a mile high wall of Earth curve blocking the view of the far left of the island, you're at the point where, I'm sorry guys, no one's going to buy a quarter of a mile high hologram. No one.
Well, if it depends on how indoctrinated you are. I reckon Jeremy would, because he believes that we went to the moon, so I reckon you could probably persuade Jeremy anything. Jazz Conda's asking, can he get back in?
The only way you can get in if you've been sniped from this particular show, unfortunately, is if you have another account that you can use. So I'd love to say yes, just jump back on, but if you've been sniped, unfortunately, no, that's it. If you haven't got another account, you can't get into this show. You can get into the next show, but unfortunately, the Globers want it to seem like we run out of steam at this point, which we will not. I'm more than happy to spend this entire show declaring that the Earth is flat completely unchallenged, because
I agree.
It is unchallengeable. It's been challenged and they've failed multiple times, multiple occasions, in multiple ways, because nothing that is identifiable in that photograph should be identifiable, unless it's a hologram. And all of it must be a hologram, because all of it should be hidden by Earth curve. Reality check, guys. Big fat reality sandwich time. We see it all. It's all there. We've got line of sight. Your curvy line of sights, yeah, well, you have to argue that all those different lengths and different sizes of curves as we look up and down that island, because you can see it now on Google. Go and do it for yourself, audience. Drag a line from St. Bees over the Isle of Man and you'll see those lines being curved. They all curve in a different amount. They're all different lengths because we're looking further and further over the curve, and we are being obscured by a bigger and bigger and bigger earth wall curve that should, but does not, block our view of all of those landmarks. We shouldn't see any of it, and we do, because the Earth's flat. And you can't challenge this. You've got nothing, Globers, absolutely nothing to challenge this with. You've tried and failed multiple times, and everybody's seen it. We all know, the guys who have been doing this, like myself, Math Powerland, Eric DeBay, Sleeping Warrior is on the panel right now. We already know. We know the score. This isn't a shock to us. For you guys, this is the penny drop moment where you either succumb to your cognitive dissonance and do what Lottie does and just deny and then get on with your lives, or you accept the reality. The reality is the Earth is flat. It's obvious and observable, and there's nothing you have to challenge that. Nothing. That's why we have an empty panel. That's why when someone comes on to try and discuss something slightly different, they get sniped. So it seems like the show has died. It hasn't died. The Earth's just flat. And all of the umpteen numbers of Globers that came on to challenge that fact have failed. Now, we just have us declaring it as fact. Proven by us.
And the best thing is when people like Paul come on and they get cornered. And Paul's done it twice in the last couple of days. With regards to the lighthouse and the elevation, he was cornered and he was asked a question and his answer was, and it was spotted. He did the same thing yesterday. When he was cornered, I got him cornered because I asked him where specifically did he want me to stand, because he knew the next time I put that placemat down, that marker, and put the line back in where he knows it is now, it's going to give him a line of sight. And he was cornered again. But where do you want it, Paul? So when people come in and do things like that, and they distract and they literally obfuscate, they try and derail the conversation. And that's why I've been continuously saying, let's pull it back on track. Let's pull it back on track. And the reality is this.
Got Mike on the panel. How are you doing?
All the houses are behind the curve.
Can you hear us, Mike? You're going to get booted unless I get hello. No. Left anyway. So yeah. Usually this would be a very, very contentious subject until you run out of things to argue about. Basically, they ran out of land yesterday. And today, we have got nothing left to argue about. Nothing else to challenge. Doesn't matter what landmark you pick. I can do this all day. We can pick a landmark, figure out how much land there is below it, go to the curve calculator and show that we see all of it. Every single time. Doesn't matter what landmark they pick. Every single time they pick a landmark, they'll either go to Google Earth or the Ordnance Survey map. We'll pick a number, start calculating how much below it we see, and then we'll find very quickly that we see all of it. Every time. And the only way that's possible is if there's nothing obscuring our view. We have simple perspective and a flat Earth. Nothing more. That's it. Tiny, tiny, insignificant amounts of refraction aren't even worth mentioning.
What do you think about Al Kay and Miles Davis going back and doing the observation again, or whatever they did? Don't you think it's prominent and prevalent that there's no debunking video come out and it's now Tuesday? Wouldn't you expect that to be out straight away?
Yeah, this is telling to the audience. Yesterday, when there was still stuff to argue about, when they worked their way all the way down to the last lights and failed, and suddenly Rumpus is realising, hold on, if I plot this out in my model, it puts it on the horizon. Oh, well, that's a bit of an issue. Oh dear. Well, I've run out of elevation, it would appear. Well, okay, Rumpus. Well, you've made a mistake then. Your maths doesn't work. You've made a mistake. You're not completely infallible. Yeah? Well, that's a bit of a problem for you, Rumpus. Where are you today? Not here. Not here. Boycotting us, you say. Ah, Cat Earth. Excellent timing. I thought you were boycotting the show, Cat Earth.
You might get disowned by your ballers by coming on the show if you're not boycotting.
It's not said anything yet. No, he's gone. Got a couple more guests trying to get in. Maybe everyone's getting sniped as soon as they join. That could be the possibility here. No worries, whoever the sniper is. No problem. Very telling. Because you're not shutting us up. The people declaring the reality of what we see. No holograms, no Earth curve.
I'm just gonna do a shout out to some of the comments that are on that previous video. When we did the Flat Earth Debate 104 live, one particular comment from a guy called John Boyce, and I'll read out what he's put. He's put, we see you watching the truth and what is really going on here. I'm with you all the way because you taught the truth. Boltards do nothing but lie and downgrade people. These shows have proven in my eyes who and what the Boltards are all about. Couldn't agree more. These people that are Boltards are liars. It is that simple. They will literally tell you stuff that is false, and they know it's false. Maybe some of them believe it's true, but most of them, I mean, Jeremy will believe anything. So I mean, he'll tell you about Apollo until the cows come home. But most of them realize it's not. I mean, there is no way that Slice Barkane, the guy's clearly intelligent. There's no way he's not realized that there's no curve. Slice Barkane pushes the narrative for whatever reason. He doesn't want people to know, or whatever the reason is. But the reality is, shout out to Shumi, by the way. Slice Barkane knows. Red's rhetoric, on the other hand, is so indoctrinated, and GeoStreamer is so indoctrinated by the system that they couldn't possibly consider the possibility that it might not be real. But most people, especially Slice Barkane, that's why I don't bother with him anymore. Slice Barkane is somebody that absolutely knows that the Earth is a ball. He absolutely knows that the Earth is flat, but he pushes it anyway. It's totally dishonest. He's not stupid. Daz the cameraman, he knows that the Earth is not a ball, but he pushes it anyway. They're dishonest. They're telling you lies. They literally are telling lies because these people are intelligent enough to work it out. Me and Nathan are stupid. We can't work it out. That's all we get told. But when we look through it all and we look at the evidence objectively, and if anybody thinks that this has been a smooth roller coaster ride for us, it hasn't. There's been times when we've disagreed on stuff. We've rage quitted on each other because we don't all have the same level of objectivity of the evidence that we need. Some people put more weight to some evidence than other people put to that same piece of evidence. For example, Nathan may say this one piece is strong, and I'll say it's not as strong as you think it is, though. And he'll say, Anthony, why are you putting all your eggs in that one basket? And I'll say, I'm not, but I was the one that took the footage. So it's not been easy for us because we have disagreed quite a lot. We have had rage quits between ourselves because that's not how we all interpret things, and that's fine. But what it's done is it's made us all united even stronger, because the reality is what we're looking at is not consistent with the ball. All of it should be behind the curve, but for a couple of lights near the beginning. We're not seeing that. That's a problem.
Yep, as it stands, what we have in this situation is a sniper in the back chat who's removing any guests that want to come and challenge us on this. So perhaps the people saying, echo chamber in full effect, don't appreciate that this show is currently under attack, and whoever is in the back chat wanting to snipe everybody out, as I say, I can't do anything about that. If you want to stay here and snipe it and leave us to completely declare exactly what we have found to be evident, factual, true in the image, then I'm more than happy to do that for the rest of the show. You know, the Isle of Man stuff, it doesn't get boring. And as Anthony says, for the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks solid, all of us have been completely and totally immersed in this. You know, and yes, we have our fallouts, we have our disagreements as we're trying to figure out what's what on this evidence. You know, and we haven't completely, we're 90% there, but we haven't still completely come to a consensus on what we are actually observing. It's very, very difficult to do. And we've got people working on it that are, you know, very, very talented, skilled people, and they're working behind the scenes to model this stuff with LiDAR maps that are taking, you know, proper scans of the land, of the actual topology and how it lays out, and they're matching this stuff up on graphical representations that are given us by a corporate entity that tells us we live on a sphere, and we're comparing and contrasting the two, and what we're seeing is, as people describe on the globe side, tiny differences. It's virtually not, you would not notice this unless you were looking at it to the nth degree and scrutinising it in the kind of way we have been. And we've scrutinised it, and the globers have scrutinised it. And the bottom line here is there is one fact, one truth that can be taken from this. We shouldn't see any of the landmarks. We shouldn't see it. The fact that the guys who are on the globe belief side of this argument want to triangulate holograms, that's their bag. They can triangulate holograms all they like, but that's fallible. That's nonsense. That's not what we see. I don't think any of it's holographically projected above any Earth curve, because it isn't. There's no evidence to suggest that it is. The amount that it has to be projected above the Earth curve is huge by virtue of how good the quality of Anthony Riley's video is. It's that good that you can see down to the shoreline, and you can calculate this out all day. All you've got to do is find me any target in that image, put a ring round it on the Ordnance Survey map, and we'll calculate how much below we see. A lot. In every instance we see a lot of land below any landmark you pick. And when you plot that into whatever you like, an Ordnance Survey map or Google Earth, whatever you feel best represents your rubbish model that doesn't work, we will find that it should be obscured by Earth curve, and isn't. We just see it. So it's back to holograms. It's all a hologram. It's all being projected. No, it isn't. That's what you have to believe, though, if you want to believe you live on a spinning ball. You have to look at that evidence and say, I can't see any of it. If I point my gun at it and fire a bullet, I would hit nothing but air, because what we're seeing is a holographic projection of something that is blocked by Earth curve. And that's not what we see. None of it's blocked by Earth curve. We can see all of it. And you can challenge me on this all day long. I'll do the maths till I'm blue in the face. The bottom line is, though, the boycott is in effect because they've run out of land. They've run out of stuff to examine. They've run out of options. There's nothing else to argue. They have not bought a single thing back from behind the Earth curve. Nothing. With their maths that accounts for this. Nothing's been bought back. And we have completely shut down the you can see your own arse around the curve of the Earth with refraction argument because it's ridiculous.
Nathan, do us a favour, put my screen on for me, on screen share if you would. I just want to remind people of how... Who was it now? You'll have to remind me who it was. Was it Lottie says that said, when Rumpus gives us the maths, that'll be fine?
Yeah, I think it was.
So I want to remind people that the cognitive dissonance elements, the people that are unable to think for themselves, they rely on people like Rumpus to tell them what the maths is. And once Rumpus gives an explanation, it doesn't matter how accurate it may or may not be. They will accept it no matter what. And in yesterday's show, Lottie said, as long as Rumpus gives us the maths, that's enough. Now, I want to remind people, when I get my screen on, just let me know when it's on, Nath.
Yeah, you're screen sharing. Sorry.
Okay. I want to remind people of what actually happened yesterday when Rumpus started talking about these the 3 lights. So let me get my 3 lights back on, which are here. These 3 lights here, Rumpus initially suggested that they were not in this cove, Rumpus initially suggested that they were these 3 lights, and I put a marker pin on them, and it was basically showing that these 3 lights were meant to be these 3 buildings. None of Baldrine was the evidence in the picture, because if these 3 lights really were these 3 lights here, that big massive town full of all them houses, probably 100 houses, you'd expect them to be seen in the evidence here, but none of them were evidenced. But did you notice that Rumpus said, well, actually, I'm being told that we've miscalculated that. So whoever was feeding Rumpus yesterday, however that was being done, he was being fed. He then recalculated it. So people like Lottie says, who accept that Rumpus calculates it and therefore it must be correct, the alternative was then this was the 3. Well, maybe it wasn't. I can't remember precisely what point we got to with Rumpus in identifying this land. I don't think we got to the point where we could, because it became a derailing exercise again. But my suggestion was that these 3 houses may line up with it, because fundamentally it matches. There's 3 lights and there's a couple more buildings that look like they might be to the right, and we have 3 buildings here, and then it looks like there might be a couple more to the right. I suggested that perhaps these might be the lights because they sit on the ravine edge and there's land underneath it. And we see that they sit on the ravine edge and there's land underneath it. They're not going to go with that because the land that we see underneath it is basically down to the sea level. Okay? Again, there's no hump in the way. So they're not going to go with this, but it seems to match. Now, I'm not saying it does match and I'm not saying it is. I'm just suggesting that if the lights from over here weren't, then maybe these are. Because I don't really care what these lights are. My next question was going to be, well, where's the curve? But I still want them to identify something, because if they're saying that this is Baldrine, what are these 3 lights? Because these 3 lights are prominent. All of these lights down here are all behind the curve. All of them. So whatever they come back with doesn't really make any difference. But there is no curve. Isn't it funny that this boycott, which we should encourage, GeoStreber's been reminding people in chat. GeoStreber says, I'd like to remind everybody about this boycott. Well, we're supporting the boycott, Geo. Because what you call a boycott, we actually call dishonesty. It isn't a boycott at all. None of you can answer this. The curve is blocking out all of these houses. And I saw bits and pieces of the Rumpus's hangout with you the other day, yesterday, Geo. And the 90-minute hangout identifying every single building. Yeah, I'm not bothered what the identification of the buildings are. They're all behind the curve, Geo. All of them. So unless you want to argue that we're seeing some kind of mirage, some kind of, what should we call it, Nathan? We'll have to give it a weird name. It deserves a stupid, idiotic name. Like, I don't know what we can even call it, but unless you're saying that we're not... what you see here is a mirage. That's what we need.
Yeah, it's a holographic...
We need that weatherman.
It is. That's accurate, though. It is a holographic projection in their model. That is what it is.
So, GeoStreber and Rumpus had 90-minute hangout identifying every single building. Okay, we'll accept whatever claims that you have on the buildings, because it doesn't really make any difference. Come and show us how they're not behind the curve. That's the point. Come and show us that they're not behind the curve. The buildings fit standard refraction conditions. Really? All right, Geo. If the buildings really do fit standard refraction conditions, tell us what the 3 that are on screen are. And we'll go and apply the maths now. We'll do it live. Give us the GPS coordinates of the middle building. You don't have to come on.
Maybe GeoStreber didn't understand the part where we explained that it doesn't matter which target you pick, GeoStreber. What we will do is we will get you to identify how high it is on any map that is credible. So in this instance so far we have Ordnance Survey and Google Earth that are claimed to be credible models of your world. If you use those, we will calculate how much below we see. Doesn't matter which target you want to pick, we'll calculate with pixels or whatever method you choose approximately how much is below that. Then we'll plug in the maths. And if you fail to bring it all back, which you will on every single target, the Earth is obviously and observably flat. This is not a boycott. This is a retreat. This is them beaten.
It is retreat. That's exactly what it is. Huey says, congratulations, Nathan. The debate is over. Damn right it's over.
Yeah.
Because unless this gets proven...
The debate channel's not over. There's still people who will come in, like the guy who got sniped, who was presumably a glober, and wanted to claim that the equinox was proof of a globe. Now, these sorts of questions are about intangible items that neither of us on the panel now, the only 2 people who are permitted to be here by the snipers, because they cannot snipe us, is still in question. I have no idea what the sun is. You know, it doesn't prove that we're on a globe, and I would assert that. But that doesn't mean that people still take that as evidence of being on a globe. Also, when they present that, it's very easy for us from this point on, because the debate will continue. We haven't convinced the world the Earth is flat with this, far from it. But it's very easy to present it to new people and say, well, that's fine. You understand the Earth to be a certain shape based on what the sun does. How do you reconcile the fact that when you take a picture of it, it's flat?
All right, just so that for the benefit of everybody in chat, this is the incompetency of the stupid people that we are supposed to be debating and dealing with. So if I put the thing in and I click search, oh no, it now seems to have done it. Maybe it was me. I apologize. When I did that a second ago, it didn't work. All right, so now the claim is. So I'm just checking. I'm hoping that this is the middle light. Oops. So the middle light we can now... Right, we can see where we're going with this just because of this red line. If you've been keeping up to date with the flat Earth debate, you will know what this red line represents. Well, the claim is from GeoStreamer, boys and girls, that this is one of the lights. I asked him for the middle light, so I'm going to hope that this is in fact the middle light. So, and Geo claims that this is completely consistent with standard refraction. So what we're going to do now is get down onto the line of sight, and before we look at refraction, we're going to see, does it match the evidence or not? Straightforward, compare, contrast. A 5-year-old can do this. It's not difficult. So we'll get down onto the line of sight and see, does it match the evidence? So I'll get it down to about 200 feet because you can't go much lower. There we go. Pull it up to the horizon.
100 people watching. Great boycott.
Yeah, your boycott's working, boys. Right. So Geo says, where is it? Let's go back to his quote so we get it exactly right. Geo, where are you? The buildings fit standard refraction conditions, right? So that's what we're testing. Does this building fit the standard refraction conditions? To validate this claim, which is the first thing that anybody does, we have a look to see, does it actually match the evidence? Okay, so I'm now going to present the evidence. And what Geo's claiming is that these 3 lights, the middle light should be the one that we're looking at. Now, is it close to the horizon? Yes. In relation to the clump of trees, is it close to the clump of trees? I think that clump of trees is just over the horizon there, so I might give him a yes on that one, actually. It is. The clump of trees is this thin band that's here. So relative to the clump of trees, is it close? Yes. Let's just have a look at the rest of the landscape. I need to get down a bit more. Because I'm just curious, has he got it right? Because I can't remember where we got this middle one. So if I now zoom out, right, so if it's the case, then maybe Baldrine, does that match there? I'll pass that. I'll give that a yes. What about this town here, Baldrine? So relative to there, it would be, well, actually, there would be 2 towns. Hang on. We would have one to the left, one to the right. So if this was correct, there would be a whole town of Baldrine here. Because that's what we see. This town that's here with all these houses. I mean, let's just quantify how big this town is. It's called Baldrine, or Baldrine, whichever. And when you zoom up a bit, I mean, there's 100 houses in here. So so what your position is, GeoStreamer, that the whole town of Baldrine is somehow consistent with the evidence?
Seems
GeoStreamer
has not been keeping up to date with the flat Earth debate. You have run out of land, Geo. You have run out of land. Try to pay attention and keep up.
I don't think that there's any explanation, a fair explanation for why the whole town of Baldrine is not in the evidence. Because if it is in the evidence, it should be here. But in any event, let's just go with this for the sake of, let's see where it takes us. But
let's
if
pretend
Baldrine
on this
is meant
day there's some magic refraction effects that happen to hide that town and bring everything else. Let's just pretend that the hologram hasn't brought that particular part back, and let's test his maths on that anyway. Let's see how high that item he's picked is, because he gave you coordinates, right?
I will. But what I want to, I haven't forgotten about the elevation. We'll test that in a sec. If this is the claim, then it means that this part of the land that's here has to be this part of the land that's here, which is what I wanted them to concede the other day. They wouldn't do it. But if Geo's claiming that this is that, then that bit there where it rises up there is this bit of land that's here. So that would mean that this bit has to be Douglas Head. Okay? So if we then pan round here, can we see Douglas Head in the image? It could be that little one behind it. Yeah, we're looking at Douglas Head there. That makes sense. And we know that it's higher. So let me get the full contrast picture up. That one. Oops, because I can go straight into the... Come on, get there in a sec. Right, so if Geo's claim is correct, then that would be Douglas Head. So then we're left with, let's go back to Google Earth, and we'll change the parallax to bring in as much of the land that's behind Douglas Head as humanly possible. Basically, there's nothing. So let's see how much more we can see. So basically, we should expect to see Douglas Head, and that's it. The land would then stop. Is that what we see in the evidence? That's not consistent, is it, Gio? So even if we're in the right area and your house identification is correct, if we turn a blind eye to how much of the town that's Baldrine that should be there and that isn't there, then it makes sense that this would be that corner of the head on this corner. That would be Douglas Head. But what's all the land that's behind here, dude? That's not consistent with what we're seeing on your model. You know, your model that doesn't work. Well, oh, actually, there's a little tiny bit there. You can see a little tiny bit, yeah. I'll give you that. But it's that low that we're not, like, this is where we get to the curve. So let's apply the curve calcs. Completely consistent with standard refraction, he says. Where was it? There. So let's go back to this. So he's identifying this land here. Now we need the Ordnance Survey map. So it says 490 feet there. So let's get the Ordnance Survey map for Isle of Man. Ordnance Survey Isle of Man. Because this is what this is now seems to be the acceptable height thing. So we'll bring up Ordnance Survey, Isle of Man Ordnance Survey. Let's have a look. This might do it, maybe. Isle of Man. Oh, you have. I think I just did Ordnance Survey and then I typed it in. So Ordnance Survey, and then do a search in here for Isle of Man. Come on, right. A bit too close that. Right. The North Barrule. Where is this? Might need your help here, Nath. Trying to locate the actual map.
I don't know where they got the leisure map from, to be honest.
Because we can't find the right find the right Ordnance Survey map. Because if we can't find the Ordnance Survey map, we can't apply the height to it because they don't accept Google Earth for the height. So we're not going to be applying Google Earth because that apparently is so far wrong that we can't possibly rely on it. Yet they've spent millions of dollars of taxpayers' money on planes, surveying equipment, all that, and apparently when it works against them, they don't want to apply it. Funny that, isn't it? To be honest, I'm struggling to find where they got it from. Maps, maybe it's in there. Oh, maybe we can get it now. Ordnance Survey. Is this giving me what I'm looking for? I don't think it is it?
Nah, it's just Google Earth. It says at the bottom.
Yeah. Map data Google. Yeah, that's not right, is it? It was just saying Ordnance Survey in the search results. I perhaps thought it might have been what I was looking for. All right, we need the Ordnance Survey.
And frankly, this is their argument. You know,
it is.
I don't care.
But we're having to do it on their behalf.
I don't care about using Ordnance Survey. All I care is that it's the same at both sides. And your argument from the off has been, well, we're testing your model. This is a model of Earth. It's called Google Earth. Let's test how well it works. And as soon as we get to elevations, which is critical when it comes to testing curvature, of course, they give you a 20-meter discrepancy on Google Earth.
Yeah.
You're like, well, this is ridiculous. Why isn't it accurate? You know, the stars are accurate. We've got accurate maps of the stars. But what? We don't have an accurate map of Earth? Not even Google is an accurate map of Earth? You kidding me? So what? Okay, well, let's go to Ordnance Survey. Oh, we can't get one for the actual target locations. We know why. Because every single equation we do on it will take us below what they need. They're never going to bring anything back from behind the curve. It's never going to happen. There isn't one. There's no curve there. Hello, Mr. Flat Curve. See how long you last. Less than no seconds.
It's because they're all running like rats. The rats they are. Right, I can't actually find an Ordnance Survey map for the Isle of Man. There must be one somewhere, but I'm not finding it. Ordnance Survey online.
Yeah, you beat a retreat. That's what you need to do. Lay down suppressing fire. You beat a retreat. Back to your dogmatic belief that you live on a globe.
No,
I'm
I'm
going
not
to take
getting
Geo
it.
Schreiber at his word. He says the height from the Ordnance Survey map was 150 to 160 metres. You can check this in my Hangout later if you want. Just take him at his word. So he's claiming 150 metres for the target height there.
All right. So the height, the distance of what I have. Let's put that in. Let's the height is the height is there 38.56 miles.
150 metres, and your target, when Paul showed me on the Ordnance Survey map, was in a ring that was on 40 metres.
38.56 miles. Viewer height. Should we guess it, or should we put in?
No. The Ordnance Survey puts you at 40 metres.
My viewer height.
Your viewer height, your target height, was in a ring that was labelled 40 metres. I got up and had a damn good look at it. I know exactly what you are on the Ordnance Survey map.
What value am I putting for my height?
40 metres.
Okay. So refractive hidden. Well, we're going to start with hidden of 122 metres of hidden. Okay. So what did he put for the value that was the amount that it was hidden? The elevation.
You've got to get less than 130, I think.
To be
this
seen.
Is before we start working out how much below it we see, of course.
Yeah. So what's the value that we need? 130.
Let me get it straight.
Well, we're at 122.
He's bought back 8 metres. Let's have a look
Hang on,
and see.
Hang on. Let's not say that yet. Let's say that at 122, if he's saying that it's 130 metres, that gives us 8 metres above the shoreline. So then we go back to the evidence and we look at the evidence and we ask ourselves, is this consistent with what we see? I'll minimize that, get rid of that. Now we're looking for 8 metres above the surface of the water. There we go. Now, is it the case? Is this consistent with 8 metres, this bit? I'm going to assert not. I'm going to say that is way greater than 8 metres. I'm going to say that based on the evidence, it appears let's just say that you've got the identification right. I'm going to say that we're seeing right down to the beach where there is none, rocks. I'm going to say that there is no curvature whatsoever. And the geometry of the Earth, let's say that he's got it right and it sits on the horizon the way he's claiming it. He's arguing that for 8 metres worth of bringing it back, it sits on the band of refraction right down here. That's what he's telling you. Based on the maths, based on the curve. Now, even if we add a little bit of refraction, and we know that refraction is negligible, but they have this calculation based on an apparent radius, we'll apply it because it's their maths. We don't agree with it. Bullshit. But we'll apply it anyway. 95 metres. So he gains 95 to 100. He gains kind of 25 metres. So we'll give him up to this pixel
35
here.
metres.
We'll give him up to this pixel. Is it consistent with what you're looking at? Or does it appear to be flat as a pancake? So even if he's correctly identified it and Rumpus has done his maths and Paul's done his maths and everybody's done their maths.
And we ignore the fact that there's not a town next to it.
Yeah. So there is no town next to it. So, okay. So what we'll do now is we'll open up this again and we'll point out the fact that there is no town here. Baldrine should be here, Geo. There is none. That's not consistent. That makes me think you've misidentified it. Probable because you're doing it based on calculations, based on Rumpus's maths. Rumpus has already shown that he can be wrong. Frequently, he doesn't get things right. So where's Baldrine? That should be in the evidence. And if this is supposed to... I'm going to put a line in here. If you're telling me that somehow is consistent with the standard refraction on your model, you're telling me that represents 8 metres. Sorry, was it 18 metres? No, that's not consistent with the evidence. What is consistent with the evidence is that if there was the curvature of the Earth, it would appear like this, Geo. Like that. That's what you should be looking at for where this waterline is.
If we have refraction bending the light, according to their standard maths, that's where it would put those lights in the image. Clearly, that's not where it is in the image.
But obviously, their argument has to be that this is non-standard refraction.
They also are arguing in this example that piece of land is considerably closer to us because they've forced all the towns up the coast.
So they've got to argue that the non-standard refraction is the case. Now, even if it is the case, you've still got all this land evidence in the picture that I've just shown you off to the left. and it's supposed to all be behind the curve, Geo.
Oh,
So let's just say that you're right.
So if that's at 7 meters, are we saying that the stuff below it is refracted more in a different way with different levels of refraction? Because at the moment we've got something that's sat on the horizon that should be where you've put it on that green line. Clearly there's lots and lots and lots of land below it. But we've also got other land that's distinguishable below that. So that's a big problem.
Because it means that we're actually looking at a mirage. And if you're really suggesting, Gio, that we're looking at a mirage, you're a fool. You're an indoctrinated fool that's going into the education system that I left some years ago, and you aren't coming out the other end of it realizing that you are being deceived. You, I consider to be deceived. I don't consider you to be a protagonist because I don't believe that you've realized. But what I am saying is that eventually you will do. And if you don't, you're a Burke. Because fundamentally, all these houses are behind the curve, Geo. So even if they fall in with standard refraction,
after standard refraction is applied.
Yeah, even if they fall into it after standard refraction is applied, you've got to turn a blind eye to this, because this is not consistent with standard refraction. Because that dot should be sat on the horizon, and in this instance, a little bit of refraction along the horizon, bit of distortion, you wouldn't even see it. So no, Geo, it's not consistent with standard refraction at all. You're either trying to push deception, or you're too stupid to realize it's not where you think it is. Or you've misidentified it, which is more likely because it's Rumpus calculating it, because maths doesn't prove reality. It may be, it's only true if it matches, and I've just demonstrated it doesn't match. So we'll pass on that one now.
A new guest.
Not going anywhere, is it?
Hello, new guest. How you doing? Can you hear us? You're on mute at the moment.
Who is it?
It says Manchester City. No, been sniped. Still laying down suppressing fire, guys. Not got any better than that. Is that the best your keyboard warriors from the chat can do? Failing to bring back an absolute crap load of land. Well done.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll find Mr. Ranty, and I'll invite him in. In fact, what I'll do is I'll actually add him to this call, and if he joins, he joins. If he doesn't, he doesn't. So add person to this call. Where is he? There he is. So Ranty's added just so that it doesn't become an echo chamber. But you do realise that by sniping everybody, it becomes an echo chamber.
Hello.
Hello. Can you get rid of your Skype screen just so I can get back to the Hangout?
Me?
Yeah, or I'll just put my... Don't worry about it.
Hang on, I'll do it now. Stop sharing. Done.
So what we had up until yesterday, Ranty, was we were at a position where the Globers were literally fighting against their own model, telling us how rubbish it was. That's the reason they won't be here anymore, because for every argument... Yes, that's right, the Globers lost, didn't they? For every argument that they lose badly, like GeoStreber's just done in his keyboard warrior way from the chat, every time that happens, it reaffirms anybody who's watching that we aren't seeing any Earth curvature. Doesn't matter what myth magic they reply to it. None of it's being bought. And they're laying down a suppressing fire as they beat a retreat with their tail between their legs, having completely failed, lost the argument completely. There's no evidence.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Tim Osmond did that earlier on in the week. He said... I think he left a comment on your video saying the same thing, that basically he was going to get everyone to boycott it. And that was simply because we had somebody come in from the Isle of Man to say that it was Douglas. And as soon as they started hearing this, and that the other people were going to join and they were all going to say it was all Douglas, they all said they were all going to start boycotting it.
Right.
Or retreating, as we'll call it.
Yeah. They can't carry on telling us how rubbish the globe model is and how badly it doesn't work, and having us insist that we use their own benchmark. You know, we've spent days and days with them dicing up the observer height, going back to it, physically going back to it, taking measurements, whatever they may be, we don't know yet. But they've gone to the nth degree to try and debunk your observation position. When it comes to the target, suddenly there's a cost in the way. There's all sorts of problems that prevent them from doing the same thing. They'll pay the petrol to go up there, physically go up there with their equipment in the cold and take observations. But as for getting a map that actually just gives us target height observation, you're joking. We'll use the useless leisure map, unless GeoStreamer's claiming that he's actually spent $100. I doubt it. He's just using the leisure map and probably having a guess. I might call him on that and go and have a look at his hangout. I've never actually watched one of GeoStreamer's streams. Getting a good plug here. I hope you're grateful. But yeah, it might be worth double checking exactly where he got that figure from. Because so far, nobody has produced a accurate down to 3 centimetres Ordnance Survey map. I've not seen that. And when I see figures like, oh, well, it's between 130 and 140, excuse me, we're being charged with measuring it with a tape measure. No calibration needed. Tape measure. That's what we need at the target height. When we get at the observation point, when we want the target height, we get given a range that's within 10 meters from GeoStreamer. We get a range, not down to the centimeter. Not running a tape measure. Not going and confirming that is the observation point. He's not travelling to the Isle of Man. He's not even buying the map. He's just giving us a range. This is as good as it gets from the Globers. A rough range on the target will do. Here's your rough range.
Didn't that clown Miles Davis attempt to go and do the measurements with that other clown, Al K?
I don't know what they attempted to do, but they haven't come back with a debunk, and it's Tuesday, and they went on Saturday or Sunday. So I'm calling that a failure to debunk Riley, because otherwise the video would well be up. And in addition, Geo claims in a private chat on Skype to me, he said, I wouldn't call what's happening with Oakley's channel a boycott, more like a quarantine. Well, we do need a quarantine. We've got a lot of rats around, so we do need a bit of rat poison going down. But he claims that I've already got 2 things wrong with the data I gave you. Well, you gave me 2 pieces of data, Geo. One was GPS coordinates, which, for whatever reason, when I copied and pasted it first time it went in wrong. Don't know why, it wasn't down to me, copy and paste. But then when I did get it, the other data you gave me was the elevation. So I put the elevation in.
Interesting.
And it's nowhere near what you claim it is.
The tides have turned. So you know how we get accused? I've opened up this platform to the Globers so that they can challenge us on the stuff that we are saying. What GeoStreamer's now doing is opening his own hangout so they can have a nice little circle jerk while they shoot us down and stop people from talking to us. So they're essentially forcing us to talk amongst ourselves while they have their own little circle jerk. Isn't that cute? I can guarantee that won't be getting sniped left, right and centre because we're open. My doors are open. Anybody is welcome to join. The fact is, snipers ahoy, they want to stop you from talking to us. They being the Globers. There's no flat earthers sniping here. There's no absolute way that there's flat earthers sniping this hangout. Because we know who's sniping it. The people who are saying they want to boycott it. And they are amongst the 112 people currently watching, who in their minds think that they are doing something good by telling my chat whilst watching to boycott the show and go to see GeoStreamer, which they're welcome to do. But as Physics Warrior joins and gets sniped, it is because they don't want people to be here talking to us. Well, I wouldn't want that either if I was on your side of the fence, because we have proof the Earth is flat. Proof! And you don't like it. And it's going to get examined, it's going to get diced up, it's going to get demonstrated, it's going to get shown to the audience repeatedly. This isn't going to go away, guys. Doesn't matter what you think about my show. I am insignificant in relation to this observation. So, unfortunately, Anthony, I've got to say this, unfortunately, so is Anthony. He's made the observation, but the reality of the flat Earth is reality. It's nothing to do with Anthony and his camera. It's true anywhere you stand. Doesn't matter where you make the observation from. You don't have to go to Lake Pontchartrain to realise that the Earth's a curve. But you can realise the Earth's flat from anywhere. You can look out your window.
Apparently, I used the wrong value. Apparently, he's just changed his mind. And do you remember what the value was that he said?
130 to 140 metres target.
Can you prove that? Where was that said? Was it in chat?
It was in chat. It goes up on the screen. He also said we could cross-reference his stream. Looks like the people that are declaring in the chat that they want to go to this guy's stream, he's already, before he even starts streaming, sacrificing his credibility and claiming now he has a different figure. Lovely. Excellent credibility you have there, Geo. Just like Rumpus. Made a mistake with your maths, have you? Can't count? What's the issue?
Right, Nate,
well,
can
okay.
I...
Well, Paul Voigt yesterday, I was challenging him to do to redo the composite because we had the Rumpus saying that he was going to do it. This was like 3 or 4 days ago. After them spending days and days saying how terrible this composite was. So when they were challenged to do it, they haven't got back with doing it. They said they would do it. They haven't. Paul Voigt said he didn't want to attempt to try it. It's like they can go around and they can make accusations that the composite isn't very good. But when they're challenged to actually improve it, they cannot do it.
Nathan, I'm trying to find the actual part in the chat. I'm sharing my screen on Skype. Would you just present it? Because I'm looking for the part where Geo gave the value for the height. So I'm just going to go through it literally in front of everybody, because he claims that he's told us one figure, but we've used a different figure. I want to check that, because it is possible that a mistake was made on our part. We're doing this on the fly without any opposition, which is not easy because we're trying to do 2 or 3 things at once. But I'm looking for where GeoStreamer says something with regards to the coordinates. So come on, where is it?
Geo said 150, Rune Thorson. That's what he says.
Where is it, though? Is it in chat?
No, he said 150 to 160, and he said you used 130. What's this about? Your elevation height from where you took the images?
I'm looking for the part where Geo gives it in chat for what it is, because that's what we applied, and I want to see what that value was.
These guys who are boycotting the show are now wanting us to accept a value that we get given in a chat feed on a YouTube Hangout. That's their standard. So no one's on the panel showing us it on a map in a ring that I can go up to and examine, like with Paul Voigt when we were dicing up your observer position. I had to get up, go to my screen, and really closely examine the map to see exactly where you sat in the ring. Right? Now, the standard has dropped to just take our word from it from chat. Absolutely brilliant, Geo.
I see Mbessa and Bessa in chat. If you want to join.
Here we go. Rune Thorson. 1:59 p.m. GeoStreamer Sleeping Warrior. It's 160 meter elevation, not 130 meter.
Right, that's the correction. What did he say before that? Did he say 130 before that, or did he say 160?
No, he's put it's 160 meter elevation, not 130. So he's increased it to 160.
All right, but that's the correction.
Got the original figure that he stated.
What did he put originally? In other words, the comment above it, I can't even find it,
because after this hangout's finished, we can just go back and look once we go on the re-up and just go through the chat, based on what we're saying at the time. So it's easy to cross-reference, and we'll just see it go up on screen.
But what's his position now, though?
Well, from what I can establish, I don't think my memory's that bad, but it seems to have been increased. That's what it seems. I could be incorrect.
Well, the first comment I've got from GeoStreamer says the height in the Ordnance Survey was 150 to 160. Okay, so perhaps we made a mistake. Perhaps Nathan regurgitated it to me wrong, or perhaps I misunderstood what he said. Whatever, let's reapply the map.
If I've made a mistake, my bad. Sorry. However, what I will add is we have seen absolutely nothing to A, prove that location is correct, there's a town missing, and B, we've not seen it on a map. So far, we've got my sunset on. That's it. No map, nothing, just the chat telling us it. It's meaningless. No evidence.
So basically what he's saying is, let's go with the 160 feet, right? 160 feet from whatever source, and we don't know the source he's took it from at the moment because he's not here to produce it. But he's saying 160 meters is the value to this land, right? So I noticed just down in the bottom corner here, I noticed that it's 480 feet-ish, 490. It's basically 500 feet. I'm going to suggest that 160 meters is not 500 feet. So that appears to be lower than what Google Earth says. I'm just interested as to what the actual thing is. So let's do 160 meters to feet. So 160 meters to feet.
Oh, there you go. Listen to this.
Hang on.
I've sent you an Isle of Man survey link on Skype.
Right, okay. Well, we'll pull that up in a sec.
Okay.
So 160 meters is 524 feet, okay? And it's saying on Google Earth about 500 feet. So that's at the front. And what does it say at the back? 528 feet. So whatever citation he's using for the observer height, it seems to be consistent with Google Earth now. So we'll put in the Google Earth. We'll put in the 160 meters. So let's go back to the curve calcs. And where is it? There we go. So we've already got the kilometers in and the meters is 160. Was that distance in kilometers right? I'll have to check that now because that didn't look right. So I'll just double check.
You're changing the viewer height. You've just changed the viewer height from 40 meters in the calc. So your viewer height was 40 meters.
I'm just going to redo both of them now so that
fine.
So that it's documented that I'm doing it on the fly. Right, so 37.57 miles, right? So let's go back to 37.57 miles. So 37.57 miles. The view height was what? What was it? Are we doing feet or meters? I can't remember.
40 meters. Yeah, on the ordnance survey, you were at 40 meters. Again, I could be wrong. This is from memory. No one's providing this for us. We just want to test Google Earth.
We're guessing.
That's what the ordnance survey
We are literally guessing. All right. So we start with 112 meters of hidden. Okay. So he's saying it's 160 meters of hidden. So 160 meters. So what he's saying is this is hidden by 160 meters of its elevation is on. So we need 48 meters to see it. So 48 meters. Is that right? 48 meters above.
No. So what's hidden is 112 meters, and he's saying that building sits 38 meters above that. So he's saying
he said 160, didn't he?
Yeah, 100. Was it 160?
He said, yeah, 160, and then you minus off the hidden that we see, 112. So we're left with 48 meters, okay? So does that match what we see? That's the first thing, all right? So let me go back to the observation. So what he's saying is of the 160 meters that this sits at, the curvature of the Earth is taking up 48 meters of it. So basically there's 48 meters between where the water is there and the dot that we see. He reckons that value represents the curvature of the Earth. Sorry, he reckons that value represents the height above water after the curve of the Earth. Yeah, again, he's got the same problem.
There's stuff below it. So what about the stuff to the right that's below it in the picture? So
but he's claiming that represents 48 meters, yeah, but it sits at 160.
If you drew a line below that line, it's like, okay, fine, let's say you can see these. Well, what about the stuff that's below it then?
Yeah, that's what we're looking at.
No. But so let's say he's brought this back. So let's say all of that house is now in view and it's above the horizon based on his maths. Yeah? Well, if that's the case, there's stuff to the right of it that's much lower. So then you have to start to account for why we can see that because it's considerably lower still. So unless we're having differing refraction effects across those two different things.
Nathan, you're being too generous. You're being way too generous. Let's apply it to what it says, right?
Fair enough.
So the distance in kilometers is 60. The viewer height is whatever value they want to make up for me. So put it anywhere you want. The hidden, 112 meters of that total 160 is hidden, okay? So the 160 is the house. So that means half of it is 80. So I'll put a line in to represent half. So if we go with kind of half, which is the next pixel, would you say that's about half? That represents 80 meters, okay? And it's at 160. So the value we're looking for is just above that at 112. So if that's 80, that means it's going to be about there for 112. That is where the water level should be. But does it match what we see? The answer is no. The water level is there. We see all of it. That's where the water is. So unless you can somehow magic this into 112 feet, but then I forgot about refraction. So even at 87, you've got to put this up to there. That would be 80 because that's half of 160. 87 would be there. Again, we're still seeing all of the land below it. So unless we're scaling the maths wrong, GeoStreamer, it isn't matching the reality in which we see. So you need more refraction. Is there any evidence to support the assertion that you can go beyond standard refraction into non-standard refraction? No. So even with refraction, Geo, it doesn't bring it back up. And even if it did bring it back up, your position is that we're looking at mirage. We need that guy. We need that guy saying, what you're seeing here is a mirage, because we'll apply that every single time. You should just have it as a quick key and just press it every time they play it, because if this is supposed to be a mirage, then yeah, maybe it is a bit of bendy light. But does it look like it's a mirage? Does it look like it's been pulled back from behind the curve of the Earth? Or is it just the way it looks, flat, as a pancake? So the assertion by GeoStreamer is that it conforms with standard refraction. That's been debunked. It doesn't. So Geo, you need better maths, or you've misidentified the building. Doesn't make any difference. Doesn't conform with the evidence. And that's before we look at all this land that's supposed to be behind the curve, which isn't even there. All the land that should be, all these buildings are supposed to be behind the curve, GeoStreamer. Nope, you've been debunked, mate. Talking out your rectum again, just like all the ballers do.
Right, I'm going to turn you down for a second just while I do a quick link. So we have approximately half an hour left on this live stream. I hope you enjoy the forced circle jerk that we are experiencing on today's live stream. That's the way it is, I'm afraid. If you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. But most importantly, if you would like to join the show and get your head blown off by a sniper, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the discussion and be quickly removed by a globehead who doesn't like the fact that the Earth is flat. If you have not shared the show, please share the show on Facebook, Skype and Twitter, as this obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. As I say, we do have half an hour left on this live stream. If you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate.
I want to know if there's any globers that can actually prove this video wrong. I mean, have you noticed how loose the standards of evidence become when it's like, for example, but not the guy that believes in the Apollo moon landings, the only guy that pushes it on the ball Earth side because nobody else believes it but him. He seems to be now the acclaimed authority for debunking somebody. And I mean, let's be honest, nobody can debunk this because you have to lie about the maths. You have to lie about the amount of refraction. You have to lie. This is actually a really easy hangout because it becomes very dogmatic and rhetorical rhetoric. We should change this to Nathan's rhetoric channel because with the snipers keeping everybody away, it just allows us to speak freely. Like it's almost like we're at the pulpit in the church, and everyone's just come to Sunday mass.
Well, they know I don't want that though. They know I want an open discussion. And, you know, if the guys on the other side want to close that discussion, well, that's how the show gets presented to the audience. It's very, very telling. You know, if you want to stop people watching this and go and have your circle jerk, I'm not going to snipe you. You know, I'd love to join and have an open discussion. I tried to have one on my platform, but clearly people don't want open discussion. Well, some individuals want to snipe the people who do, but they can't sit around here forever. If they're bored, they will eventually toddle off. And the show will continue. And while they snipe us, it's because of Isle of Man. It's because we have proof the Earth is flat. It's going to be demonstrated in more and more detail as time progresses, and it will become more and more clear to the slow people in the audience like Alex, who feel that they have the need to boycott me, which is fine, because, you know, they add very little, they're slow, and I don't mind if they disappear, because there's literally millions and millions of people who still are under the impression that they're on a globe. And what we have now on this channel, and anyone's welcome to join, is proof. We'll get presented time and time again, over and over again, and you can try and snipe us and stop us, but it won't make any difference. People will still get to hear about it. However, if you want to challenge us on it, if you have anything to challenge us on it, keyboard warriors included it seems, you're welcome to try. You'll fail because the Earth is flat, and that's obvious and observable, whether you like it or not. But you're not going to manage to boycott me and stay here to stop other people from being here. That's not a possibility. You can try, but you will get bored.
The best thing is, though, I can just imagine Paul Voigt sat there now. He's got ants in his pants and he's dying to get on, but he daren't come on because they've got this boycott in place. So we can sit here and taunt him and laugh at him and joke about how he can see his own ass in the telescope.
They're the guys that accuse you of having a circle jerk when I do a different show. Not that I changed my schedule. I carried on exactly the same schedule, but had an extra show. And they're like, you guys are excluding us. You're having a circle jerk without us. It's like, oh, right. Well, now it seems the tables have turned because I've been sitting back watching plenty of circle jerks happen around us. We weren't invited. Well, guys, it seems that you just want the circle jerk now, and you want to fire the bullets in our direction as you leave with your tail between your legs. And I love it. I'm happy to sit here chatting to Anthony Riley about how flat the Earth is. No worries.
Yeah. And the best thing is, the more they talk about this apparent boycott, I mean, the easier it becomes for us, because if there's everyone boycotting, we just transform it into, no, actually, you're just running away like rats. Because nobody can debunk where the curve is. because there is none. We're seeing right the way down to the shoreline, and from 30 to 40 to 50 miles away, we shouldn't be seeing it because there should be a huge wall of water in the way, pretty much 1,000 feet when you get to the far left. And there's a load of land there that shouldn't be there. Because if it was Ireland on a flat plane, you'd probably see it on a clear day. Ireland on a ball would be that far behind the curve of the Earth, there ain't no amount of refraction that can bring it back. Unless, of course, you believe that you can look into a telescope with the right amount of zoom and the right amount of weather and a bit of Paul's maths. You can see your own arse looking in the telescope. Then it makes sense. But let's be honest, it's ridiculous. You see it because it's there. That's it.
Yeah, it's nice that we documented this little journey with the Isle of Man. Obviously, as I say, there's plenty of other points to debate, and hopefully people will feel the need to continue watching in the meantime while people try and prevent the show from continuing. But as I say, I've said this from the start, when the shows were in full swing with Globers feeling like they had some sort of proof that the Earth was a globe, at that stage, there was people being sniped, and there was nothing you could do about it, but it got evidenced on the show, and now this gets evidenced. The fact that there is a link in the info box for anybody to join, but there's certain people in the audience who simply don't like the fact that we have proof the Earth is flat, who would prefer that people didn't talk to us about it. And I understand. I understand entirely. I would feel the same way if I couldn't debunk me. You know, I'm a humble Tesco van driver, so if I couldn't debunk me, I'd feel the same way. You know, I really would. I'd feel like an idiot if the humble guy who's out on his run, on his van, is sitting here saying, you guys can't debunk us. You failed. You've tried. You've had your best of the best on the case, and you've failed miserably. And it's not because I'm some super intelligent guy. It's not because Anthony's a genius. Not because of any of that. It's for simple facts. The Earth is obviously and observably flat, and I can apply that. It's easy. That's all I have to apply when looking at things like this evidence of the Isle of Man. I don't have to apply any myth magic. I don't have to apply any refraction. I don't have to apply anything. Just look at it. Sit and go, yeah, I see that stuff. And then I can get on with my day. It's nice and easy. It's nice and easy being on flat Earth. You've got no stress about meteors hitting you from a distant planet. None of that crap. None of it, because none of it's real. Yeah? The Earth isn't a sphere. We don't live on a planet.
Nathan, can I ask you to respond to this one? Again, Nathan, it's not a debate when one of the participants has the ability to kick anyone out without question by the host and supposed moderator.
Yeah, and it's not a debate if the snipers that removed them as well. I mean, you can install the same exact situation on your side of no man's land. The problem is, the battle's won. You know, you can worry about arguing about how the fight's taken place in this instance, but the fight's won. You've lost. You cannot bring these things back from beyond the curve. You can't do it. It's just not possible. It's too much, too far. You failed. The Earth is obviously and observably flat. And you've got nothing to challenge us with it on. You want to come in and challenge me at me removing people like Alex for completely trying to derail the conversation. You want to use that as an excuse? You go ahead. I don't care what you use as your excuse for your retreat. Everyone's always got excuses when they fail. And your excuse is, oh, we've left because he booted somebody. Oh, well, fair enough. There's 100 more people that could have joined in his place. If you feel so wronged that somebody's been ejected for being a complete dick, then clearly that's a good enough reason to not have any evidence to assert that we are incorrect. In our assertion, that you're all incorrect. The Earth's not a sphere. It's provable. It has been demonstrated. And you cannot debunk it. You've tried and failed. No problem. Call it what you like. You can say it's because I've ejected somebody. Like, I'm not the only platform that, up until now, for 100 solid shows, basically didn't eject anybody but for the fact that they swore. But there we go. That's their excuse. More power to you. Pathetic excuses. Keep them coming. I look forward to them in the comments. Tell me all about the real reason why you can't be here. Not because we can't disprove that the Earth is flat. Not because we haven't got any evidence that backs up that it's a sphere. No. It's because you ejected somebody from a Google Hangout. Up until now, it was worth a tank of petrol to go up to St. Bees. But if you eject somebody, then the argument is over. What a ridiculous statement. I absolutely love it. I'm really, really looking forward to the crap excuses. Really looking forward to him. Bring him on.
Nate. It appears we might have another voice, but he's probably been sniped already.
No. What up, gentlemen? How you doing?
Oh, very good, sir. How are you?
How you doing, Issa?
Well, yeah, man. Yeah, shout out to everybody out here in this debate land. I was curious. I just maybe wondered if you guys wanted to address another subject. I know a topic of interest has been that on the equinox, the sun rises apparently due east for everyone on the Earth, right?
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you guys had seen. Jaren did a video in regards to how from any longitudinal point, if you look 90 degrees east, you're going to inevitably your line of sight on the, let's say if you go to Google Earth, and I was wondering maybe you guys can do it. I can't stick around too long. I was curious if maybe you could maybe show it for the audience. Is on Google Earth, if you pick any longitudinal line and you look due east, it will take you to the equator. On the I think on the globe model and on the flat Earth model. If you take any, or I know at least on the globe model, if you take that 90-degree angle, and from any point on a longitudinal line, a 90-degree angle from the longitudinal line, you will inevitably, your line of sight will show that you will reach the equator. But it's not necessarily it's really interesting. I think Jaren covered it, and I think there might be some more stuff. I was curious if you guys had any take on that.
Yeah, I'll respond to that in the first instance. Kara showed that the claim that was the sun rises due east directly it didn't validate up. She got her model up on Stellarium. She presented it to me, and she said pick somewhere. So I picked somewhere, and then she showed that the sun did not rise due east. So the claim failed in the first instance, regardless of whether there's an explanation for it. Kara showed everybody, well documented, that the claim that the sun rises due east for everybody does not happen, even by their own model.
Hold on. Well, the idea being that on the equinox, I mean, I don't know. I don't know the example from Kara, but I know, for instance, like it works. I think essentially from the globe model perspective and the.
No, it didn't. It didn't.
Well,
it didn't rise due east. It was about 2 degrees off. So the claim failed.
Well, I mean, if 2 degrees, I mean, from, I guess I don't know the particular case in point, but I found, I think this is interesting. I was wondering maybe even if you could clarify, if any of us on here had some ideas about it, how if you go on Google Earth and you look from a longitudinal line, that line will inevitably just intersect across the equator.
Sure.
So it's this idea that if you're looking, either way, it's like, and as I've said before, it's maybe just an interpretation of the same set of facts. But I was curious maybe if you guys would elaborate if you had any information on it. But I thought it interesting, that's all.
If I can get Nathan to share my screen, I can show you in relation to, if I can get him to share the Skype screen. What you're essentially saying is that when you look due east. Say again?
Yeah, well, I was curious. I think hopefully, this would be an issue I've been looking into, and I was just thinking, I know you guys have focused a lot on the Isle of Man. And I was just curious if there's some other points maybe that you guys could address. Maybe,
sure.
Maybe it would bring in the other side of the discussion. I don't know, instead of maybe going over.
Oh no, they're boycotting. They're boycotting. He said they're not coming in because they're boycotting, but we actually call them retreating. So what they claim is a boycott is conveniently timed and phrased to be a retreat. They've got nothing. They cannot prove this to be wrong. There is curvature missing, and they're not coming in because they claim boycott, but actually they can't debunk it. They're cornered. No matter what island, no matter what lights they identify, they're all behind the curve, or inconsistent with the model at least. So yeah, sure, we can talk about east and west. And if Nathan presents my screen, I can show. I don't know. I've lost my.
Can I just say a quick hello to Issa, please?
Issa, you got Paul on with you. He wants to say hello.
Oh, hello, Paul. How you doing, brother?
Welcome
right,
to
you're
the
screen
show.
sharing now. Sorry, it took me so long.
You don't know.
Yeah,
You don't know. All right, mate. Long time listener, Issa.
Thank you, brother.
I'll hook up with you later on, mate. Got a lot to speak about.
So, Paul, you've
Thank you.
been on the show before, but just so the audience know who you are, Paul is from the Isle of Man. and has basically had us on the phone with loads of his mates talking about what is and isn't up and down the Isle of Man. And just to give you some context of how well this guy knows the Isle of Man, we've got a guy, Chris, who's modelling all of this for us. Very talented guy. And at one point, we were looking at some of the perspectives in terms of where they were and saying, well, this land's hidden by this land. It doesn't matter. But without knowing what was hidden, we were talking about something that isn't there. Paul explained to Chris, the guy modelling it, that you could only get that perspective from Liverpool without missing a beat. And the guy modelling it was like, no, that can't be right, that can't be right. And then he went back and double-checked it because he was like, well, the guy from the Isle of Man was pretty adamant. And he checked it, and he was absolutely spot on. And he said it in a heartbeat. Anyway, that's my introduction for you, Paul. How you doing?
Yeah. I think I may remember. Yeah, man. Yeah, and thanks for the shout-out, brother. I'm happy to think that there's some people on Isle of Man that know welcome to the show.
Of course you do. So listen, I might seem like I'm new on the scene, but I've been in this before anyone even started making videos. I've been in it from the beginning.
Wicked, Dred. Nice
and
to
the
meet
other thing I'd just like to clarify for Nathan is that the first time I came on this show, it's because I watched the debate from episode 77, and by the time I got to episode 99, I'd had enough because I wanted to provide the observations from the Isle of Man with the P900, and I also wanted to assist Jem Panda, Paul Voigt, Mark Taylor, who's got a big snore stuck in his throat and a big yawn stuck in his throat. I wanted to assist impartially. So all I wanted to do was say, I'm on the Isle of Man, tell me what you want to do, tell me exactly where you want me to be, and I will do it impartially, and then stop debating about it. Let's clarify what we're seeing. That's all. Thank you for that.
Yeah, man. No,
I'd like to listen to you talk now. You and Anthony, I'd be very happy to listen.
Yeah, I think it's this is the thing is this is such a fascinating topic. I think so many people are invested in it in one way or the other. And, I think, thank you for clarifying it, actually. When I saw you come on and you said, nope, that's this building, I was like, that's very interesting.
Paul, let me ask you. You've seen all the arguments going forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards, and whether it's Baldrine, whether it's Balacanal, or whether it's Douglas.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Ireland do you live? Whereabouts in Isle of Man do you live?
Douglas.
You live in Douglas.
Yeah.
So do you get the ferry? Do you ever get the ferry from Douglas to any?
Sometimes 4 times a year.
And where do you go?
Since 1980, since I was born, I've been getting that ferry.
I'm judging by your accent, I'm saying that you were going from Douglas to Liverpool and back again.
I was born in the Isle of Man. I was brought up in Liverpool from a young age, and then we moved back to the Isle of Man, and that's where I grew up in my later years.
So if you live in the Isle of Man, just for those that are not familiar, especially Issa, because I know he'll not understand this because he's across the pond. But Liverpool's down here. You're going to and from the Port of Douglas, back to and from Liverpool. That's what your run is, right? Yeah,
but even worse than that, well, it's different to what you're showing, because as it gets into Douglas, it actually comes out of it and comes around the corner and literally comes in and shows you the whole way from that perspective. So what you're saying is that you don't go straight into the Port of Douglas, you've got to go around a bit of a bend. Yeah, there's not quite straight in, but you'd see it as you you get there. You come round, see that breakwater sticking out there? Yeah, you have to go round that and enter on a different angle, you see. That's it. So when we've got this evidence and this, I mean, don't forget the background to this. I didn't take this with flat Earth in mind. I just took it because I was on the top of a hill. Yeah. But Ranty noticed that it might not be consistent with the curve. And when we've gone through it and looking at it, what do you think this is? Do you think this is Balacanal? Do you think this is Laxey? Do you think this is Baldrine? Or do you think it's Douglas? Or do you think it's a combination? Andy, you know I've told you what I feel, but I'm sticking to what I said. I'm coming on this show to offer assistance to Paul Voigt, Rumpel, Red Rumpus, all those on that side, and also to yourself, Nathan, and everyone on the other side. I'm here impartially to offer assistance with the observations. That's all I'm willing to say, because apart from that, people are just going to want to argue, because I've watched you all. People call you names. Anyone tries to make any valid commitment or comment about anything, people just start calling each other names. I'm here to offer assistance. You and Paul Voigt and that, you can either take that assistance or you can leave it. I'm happy to offer it. I think it's obvious that you've been arguing for 30 shows, so nothing I'm going to say is going to prove anything to you. Redo the observations from St. Bees, and we will do the same observations on the very same day that you do them from the point of view from Langness and from Mackle Lighthouse. How about that?
Well, there was a repeat experiment done on Sunday or Saturday, I believe. 2 borders went up with the P900, I believe.
I'm aware, yeah.
Yeah, and there's not been a debunk video, so I think we can put into bed or put into the bin the claim that I in some way lied. That can go in the bin because there would be a debunk video. It'd already be out. It's only a little clip, so I mean, how hard would it be with
Not
the skills
once
of?
have I ever seen anything in any of these debates that would suggest that you are a liar. I can't even believe people say that. Everyone makes mistakes, but to call people liars over nothing, I just don't understand that. But people I know just don't deal with each other like that. I don't really understand that side of things, to be honest.
What they're bothered about is the second video, because the second video, I've said many times, I don't remember exactly where I stood. But you can put me on top of the hill at 52 feet if you wish. I don't care. Because ultimately, all this is behind the curve. Regardless of whether it's identified as Laxey or whether it's Douglas, doesn't make any difference. Yeah. All of these lights are behind the curve.
Can I just update Paul, though, on one particular aspect? If you go back to Douglas a second, what they've done, essentially, Paul, is they're forcing this town to be a different town, which is further up the coast, closer to us. And therefore, it's easier to get the elevations into the mathematics. Obviously, we don't agree. We don't agree with the town identification. But by forcing that town to be a town further up the coast, it makes the targets a little bit easier. And even then, when we do them, if we were to concede that the perspective is closer than we say it is, then we have to still concede that you can't bring it back in the way that is consistent with the evidence.
Just before you answer there,
I'm following very closely, Nathan. Really am.
Nathan, let me just address a liar in chat. He said that in response to my last statement, now he's lying. He said repeatedly it was not on top of the hill. What did I actually say, Nathan, given that you were in every single hangout? With regards to that second video, was my position that I was not on top of the hill, or was my position that I was somewhere, but I don't remember exactly where I was?
Yeah, you were always very cagey, and you would always say word to the effect, if you can have it at 50 feet if you want it, because that's the highest point, but I can't remember exactly where I was.
Right, so I'm calling Gem Panda. He repeatedly said he was not...
What about the idea that we've done 30 episodes on this, and maybe we could move on to another point? Because granted, I'm just curious, because this point has been, I think you guys have demonstrated quite a bit about it. And maybe even just take on another point. Therefore, you'd have another point of contention and maybe extend, push it onto another subject. But
I'm quite enjoying the echo chamber, to be honest, at the moment, though. I'm encouraging these to come in and prove that we're wrong.
Yeah, I just, just in order to maybe evoke some of the ballers to come in, some of these subjects like the, I had the pleasure of talking with Curved Water the other day, and we were talking about this equinox issue, and I was just thinking maybe you would entice them into a discussion with this concept, But the Isle of Man, you do have the gentleman here, and I don't mean to interrupt. And I'm enjoying the show. I'm loving the show, and forgive me, gentlemen, I'm going to step for a little bit. Shout out to everyone in the chat. I was just curious about this. If you're any longitudinal line at 90 degrees, your line of sight will take you to the equator, which would explain the equinox in a certain way. At least, I don't know, Jaron did a good video about it. I thought maybe you guys could expand on it if you were familiar with it. But I love what you've done with the Isle of Man, and thank you, Paul. You're awesome, dude. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. He said we've got a song coming out soon, so I would like to get that to you to get your opinion on. Thanks very much.
I would love to hear it, and I'd be honored. Hell yeah, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be sure to soon. MBs, is that your channel too, or?
I'd like to pronounce it properly for everybody. Mabiza.
Got it. Mabiza. All right, cool. I'll look at the channel, and I'll get you, brother.
Thanks, mate.
Nah, dude, thank you, man. And that's awesome. I'm happy you even know. Welcome to the show. That's fucking cool. Paul,
he said, if you don't know, then you just don't know, do you?
Amen. If you don't know not to swear, you will get kicked off Nathan's too. So I don't want to be here. I'm the worst. I have no filter. Thank you, Nathan. If you gentlemen are still on a little bit, maybe I'll join you again. However, I thank you, Nathan. These debates have been very revealing, and
it's probably pretty good timing, actually, because we've got about maybe 3 minutes left. So.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I will sign off now. And Biza, respect. Thank you, brother. And
you, big up to you as well. Thanks very much, man.
Anthony, as always, good stuff. Little more logic and reason, maybe. I don't know. We got to talk about that.
Little more evidence. Little bit more.
I love either way.
I will ask you that before you go, Issa. Right? What's with that? So what we've got is cast iron proof. It's solid. You know, it doesn't matter where you put the perspective. We've figured this out over the last couple of days. It's solid, right? It's proof of flat Earth, right? But you want to trade that for logic and reason about intangible objects. What gives?
Well, no, my thing is that it is through the use of logic and reason with evidence like this that one could conclude that maybe the Earth is flat.
Sure, but by use of logic and reason, you can co-opt perspective and turn that into curvature with the use of logic and reason.
But that would be interpretive logic and reason. You know, we all have to use our own logic and reason. But I just say that in the sense that I think what flat earthers maybe, you know, we're really, I think what's brought us to any of these questions is the faculties of logic and reason. And I just think that that's the only reason I bust chops with Anthony a little bit over it. But I understand the sentiment, is that the idea that you guys have, like, whether you like it or not, this is the data outside of the parameters of logic and reason. I understand that. But I think we do ourselves a disservice when we kind of whittle those words to mean like, oh, we're not going to use logic and reason because there's some implication that it could be skewed. You know what I mean? And that's where, because logic and reason is just what allows us to even open up the computer and have this conversation. So I just think we try to profess logic and reason, use it. And I think it's what makes this show actually so good, is that you are using logic and reason. You know, whether we like it, whether we define it as such or not.